Good morning, neighbors. Won't you sing along with me? Together again.
Good morning. My name is Annie Collins, and I serve as president of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Spartanburg. Welcome to this sacred space. We're glad you're here. At UUCS, we strive to be a beloved community of warmth, love, and support across all of our differences. This is a welcoming congregation where everyone is welcome, just as we each are. If you are visiting with us this morning, we would love to meet you. Visitor cards may be found in the pocket of the back of the chair in front of you. Please feel free to fill one out and place it in the offering plate as it comes around so that we can better connect with you. There is always a lot going on in the life of this congregation. So find the new April Connect in the lobby, look through the one-page weekly calendar in your order of service, and always check your weekly happenings. Couple highlights. Thank you so much to all of the lovely humans who made it possible to host our away home families for the past 2 weeks. Y'all were excellent. Yes. Y'all brought meals. You showed up and spent the night. You spent time with people, accompanying them through what cannot be an easy time. Y'all showed out with hospitality at its absolute best, so thank you. All right, you can also get involved to volunteer in some other ways. You can help as a greeter, clean the facility, make coffee, and so much more. When we all help, we do better as a congregation. So if you would like to join the growing number of folks who help greet on Sunday morning, make coffee, vacuum, mop, clean bathrooms, that's my personal favorite, and tidy up all around the church throughout the week, please sign up with the link in the happenings or speak to Ann or Scott. It really is sort of fun. All right, new adult enrichment offerings, the Sacred Art of Listening workshop. So we're launching a new way to be together. Spiritual friends are peers that listen to each other deeply. Spiritual friends avoid offering advice, and instead they offer deep listening that allows the speaker's own ideas to come to life as a creative fountain and a true form of self to emerge. There is a 2-hour workshop after service today, led by Jim Scanlon, where we will practice quiet, centered listening skills. Don't we all need that? Afterwards, Scott will pair up individuals who are not already really good friends, and then the pairs will make their own schedule to get together for regular dialogue about their spiritual lives. Scott will be checking in periodically to hear how it's going. So if you have room in your life for a spiritual friend, stick around for the workshop after service today. We also have an Easter potluck and egg hunt. Next Sunday, April 5th, please join the UUCS Easter festivities with a spring picnic themed potluck immediately after church. Bring a dish and join us downstairs in Wild Hall for food, fun, and fellowship. There will be someone in the foyer to accept food and refrigerate it or keep it warm as needed during service, or you're welcome to deliver it to Wild Hall yourself. The potluck will be followed by our annual Easter egg hunt for those who are young and for those of us who are young of heart. So, thank you for all you do to make this a place of love, warmth, and welcome for all. And now, I'd like to call forward Tracy Stapleton and Janice Tuck to share some about leadership development.
Thanks, Annie. Hey, everybody. Good morning. My name is Tracy Stapleton, and along with Janice Tuck, Amber Pennington, and Stacy Jackson, we're part of the Leadership Development Committee. And this time of year, we are developing our slate of candidates for the positions in the church that are elected, that are coming open, and we'll be hosting those elections at the annual meeting. So for the 2026 to 2027 church year, the following positions will be open for any members or friends. Members, for any members. Doesn't everybody need a Janice?
I've been secretary twice.
Yeah, right. So these are the positions that will be open. We have 2 positions on the endowment committee, 2 positions on our leadership development committee, a position on the committee on ministry, a trustee at large position on the board of trustees, the secretary position for the board of trustees, the president-elect position of the board of trustees, and, sorry, no kings. Thanks, guys. And all of these positions, as well as all of our committees and all of you being here, help to make our church such a wonderful place. Janice is going to tell you just a little bit more about those positions, but if you'd like more information about what they entail or how long they last, you can contact us at leaderdev, all is one, so the word leader, D-E-V, at uucs.org, or talk to one of our committee members.
Is it leader or leadership?
I think it's leader.
Okay.
But we can confirm.
We argue a lot, but I love her. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about those positions that she was just telling you about what they entail, and help me keep track in case I forget any. So first off, we are on leadership development, and leadership development members are elected by the congregation. So all the positions that we're talking about, we on leadership development help to identify potential leaders, help to individuals based on their skill sets, temperaments, interests, business of life or lack thereof, life situation, help people determine what would be a best fit for them in terms of leadership roles, and where their desire to serve this beloved community might meet its maximum expression. That's the point of leadership development. Excuse me. So that's leadership development. There are 5 members on our team, 2-year terms. Committee on Ministry. That is a group of 3 team members who basically serve as the minister's cabinet. They fly at 10,000 feet to have an overview of the pulse of the congregation and how we are, how well we are doing in fulfilling our mission and vision. And so at that perspective, they are able to see things that maybe you don't see if you're down in the weeds on this or that committee, or serving, like a lot of us do, on multiple committees. So for that reason, if you're on a committee on ministry, you may not serve in any other elected position. So that's also a security, like I can't, I'm okay, you know, when leadership development comes knocking. Endowment. The endowment team, as the name suggests, provides the facility for the process for someone who is interested in contributing to our endowment fund, which is entirely and utterly separate from our operating budget and our annual budget. And so particularly with legacy gifts, although they don't have to be legacy gifts, but that team is there to help facilitate that process so that someone's intended giving gets to where it's supposed to go, into an endowment. President-elect is a very outward-facing, as it sounds. President-elect is a 3-year commitment. So first year is president-elect. That person serves as the chair of the Council of Committees, presides over those, attends quite a few committee meetings during that year, learns a lot, and works very closely with the Board of Trustees and the current president to again carry out and fulfill the mission of the congregation and the will of the congregation. So that's the first year. Second year, that president-elect moves into the presidential role and serves as president for 1 year. And then the third year, past president, no? Oh, there's not. So that's a suggestion now that they're on long-range planning, but that's not a requirement anymore? Okay. From current president, so I'll take that. Okay, sorry. So it's 2 year. Okay. Secretary Board of the Trustees, as it sounds like, attends all the Board of Trustees meetings, takes the minutes, is intimately familiar with the bylaws, or aspires to be, tries to make sure that the bylaws are followed and that we are following those procedures, because that's, again, the will of the congregation, how these things are set forth. And also is active with the congregation, annual congregational meeting, works with membership to get, and leadership development to publish that ballot ahead of time, well ahead of time, and making sure that we're, again, doing that according to bylaws, and all those documents and the budget and all those things are available for review well before that meeting, and presides over that meeting along with the president, takes those notes, makes that report. And then after, the last thing on Secretarial's plate of the year is to coordinate with the Archives Committee and to get documents to the public library, which holds our history for posterity and for future generations, and it's a lovely thing. Who have I left out? Trustees at large. So trustees, our Board of Trustees is a 7-member board. There's the executive level, that's the secretary, treasurer, president-elect, and president, and there's 3 at-large members, which work with the board to provide input on anything that the board is dealing with, and that can, the board is the governing body of the congregation, tasked with carrying out the will of the congregation. I've served on the board twice. I will tell you, it's where I see democracy in action more than I've ever seen it any other place in my life. We live that. We live that. And so that's a little bit of testimony there. But, at-large members assist with helping develop the budget, looking at budgetary concerns, all the things that the congregation is involved in, the board looks at and makes decisions on, and those members help with that. Did I leave anything out? Okay. Thank you, guys. Get in touch.
Hi, neighbors. Welcome to our beloved neighborhood. And today we have 2 wonderful heroes from our beloved neighborhood that are joining us. We have Hannah, who is helping us out here for a way home, and Stephen, who is helping us out as well. Please join me in a round of applause for these two heroes. And as Jewel lights our chalice this morning, we have some comments on the Good Samaritan by another hero of history. The parable of the Good Samaritan from the Bible, which we find in the book of Luke, chapter 10, verses 25 to 37, tells of a man beaten and left for dead on the road. Several respected figures, a priest and a Levite, see him but pass by, choosing not to get involved. Then a Samaritan, someone considered an outsider, and even an enemy by the audience of the time, stops, tends to the man's wounds, and ensures his care at his own expense. Dr. Martin Luther King's commentary on the Good Samaritan from his book, Strength to Love, and I quote Dr. King, "On the parable of the Good Samaritan, I imagine that the first question the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But by the very nature of his concern, the Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him?" The words of Dr. King.
Please join me in hymn 124 in your gray hymnal, Be That Guide. Be that guide whom love sustains, rise above the daily strife, lift on high the good you find, help to heal the hurts of life. Be that helper nothing daunts, doubt a friend or taunt a foe, ever strive for liberty, show the path that life should go. Be that builder trusting good, bitter though the test may be, through all ages they are right, though they build in agony. Be that teacher faith directs, move beyond the old frontier, know the fright and fear that birth, be tomorrow's pioneer.
In my earlier introduction, I neglected to mention that Hannah Jarrett is the founding director of A Place to Call Home, which is an initiative to address housing instability and homelessness in Spartanburg County. We here in this congregation are privileged to be a part of that process. And Stephen Greer is a Heart Community Resource Coordinator, providing one-on-one case management to neighbors experiencing homelessness, helping them navigate the path from the streets to stability to home. And we play a role in that. We all do. Whether formal or informal, we all play a role. And now, as we gather in community, we come to our rippling bowl, this bowl of water. A simple vessel, yet one that holds profound meaning, because each ripple we create when we drop a stone or a shell reminds us that no life exists in isolation. Every action, every kindness, every moment of neglect or care extends outward into the world. And today, as we reflect on the reality of homelessness, we are called to see those without shelter not as distant or separate, but as part of our same human circle. Lives whose ripples have too often been met with barriers instead of belonging. So we hope this water invites us to remember our shared humanity, to recognize the dignity in every person, and to consider how our own ripples, our joys and our sorrows, our compassion and our unity might become a source of shelter, hope, and restoration for the people who need it the most. For our friends online, I'll drop a stone or a shell as a remembrance of your joys and sorrows. And now, let us come together in community at the Rippling Bowl. As we move from reflection to commitment, we're reminded that our shared values only take life when we choose to live them together. Our covenant, it's not just simple words that we recite, it's a promise that we crafted and we believe to help us all show up in community, especially for those most vulnerable amongst us. In a world where too many experience isolation, including our neighbors facing homelessness, our covenant calls us to be our better selves and care for others. Let us now join our voices, grounding ourselves in this promise that we hold in common. You can find the covenant in your order of service and online below the video. Please join me, because with courage, we say, we are a people of faith and hope. Together, we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, and to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. And we're going to put that power of love beyond belief to work here. We're going to take a moment and turn to those around us and share a warm hello, a smile, a handshake, or simply a word of peace. And some people call this the time of holy chaos. You know, this church is our home. And a part of our mission is to make sure everyone who walks through the door feels that welcome, included, and at ease. So as you greet one another, it helps bring that spirit to life so that no one feels like a stranger here. And as we connect, know that people feel included in different ways, and we want to meet their needs with ours. So take a moment to connect and enjoy being in community together. And when the music starts, please return to your seats. Let our creative greeting begin. Hey, Alice, how are you? Oh, thank you very much. You have to love it when the accompanist looks at you and goes, "I tried." That's the best. So thank you very much for that and for honoring Max. And as we come to our time of offering, so it's another time to reflect, because it's interesting how generosity becomes action in the world. We may not be able, for any number of reasons, to do certain things, but we can always do something. What we give here, whether it's time or resources or care, extends far beyond these walls. And it helps us to support not only one another and keep the lights on and keep the church moving, but through our share of the plate donation with Vida y Salud, it helps us reach those in our wider community who are in need. And in a world where too many still lack the stability of home, our shared gifts can be a part of that solution, offering dignity, support, and hope. So may this offering be one way we live our values, turning compassion and reflection into meaningful impact. May the ushers come forward. As we prepare to hear the generous words of Hannah and Steve, please join me in a moment of silence.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us here. I thought I would start with a confession that I haven't been to a church service in over a decade, so it's both hilarious and intimidating that I'm joining you from this side of the lectern today, but I was assured that y'all are very welcoming, and to be honest, I think that this is perhaps the best place to ever join from this side of the lectern, is with a little honesty, a lot of fear, and a little uncertainty. So thank you all. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, I kept thinking about a story that Stephen once shared with me about a homeless man. He's a veteran in his 60s, lives on the street in Spartanburg. If you saw him, you would probably recognize him if you've ever been to downtown Spartanburg. And Stephen once took this 60-year-old veteran to the doctor. And at this doctor's appointment, the homeless individual needed to have his blood drawn. And in order to get through that moment, this 60-year-old homeless veteran asked Stephen to hold his hand to help him through that. And I could just stop there. I could get down off the stage and say that's the whole thing I wanted to tell you, but I'm going to say a little bit more because I have a little bit more time. And so the other day, I woke up in the morning and I had the phrase, "There is still a place in the world for you," just in my head when I woke up. And it felt very familiar, very remembered, like something that someone else had said, and it was echoing through me. So at first, I thought that it probably belonged to the poet Mary Oliver. If I go to any church, it's the Church of Mary Oliver, because so much of her writing is about belonging in the world unconditionally, in common and shared space. And these geese on my arm are actually after her poem, Wild Geese, which ends, "Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things." So when I woke up with the phrase, "There's still a place in the world for you," it just seemed that it would belong to her. But I Googled it because I couldn't place what poem is this from, what poem is this from. It was driving me crazy. So I Googled it. I put the phrase, "There's still a place in the world for you," into Google. And I was shocked by what I found, because the pages and pages and pages of the Google search results came back with really one thing, which was a war poster from World War I in Britain. The poster shows a line of soldiers, and there's a space between two of the soldiers, and it says, "There is still a place in line for you. Will you fill it?" And this was very depressing to me. It was bleak, to be honest, because this phrase of belonging that I had echoing through my body, "There's still a place in the world for you," was really the only thing that I could find that existed that sort of echoed this, was not about home, but about war. And about the idea that our belonging is so often conditional, and that we belong in spaces where we can be used, right? And that felt fitting, right? I wasn't necessarily shocked. I was depressed to find that. But I think that we could talk a long time and unpack that for a long time about what that means for our history and about the moment that we're currently in right now as a country and as a world, about how belonging is so often offered conditionally. But I'm here to talk about homelessness. If y'all will indulge me just for a second, I want to share a little bit about the history of homelessness, because I think looking to our past helps us understand our present, but also what our opportunities are for the future. So homelessness, and we use that word intentionally, homeless, home, because we simply asked our people in our community who were experiencing homelessness what they wanted to be called, and they said, "We want to be called homeless. We don't want a house, we want a home." So I use that word intentionally. It's also the word that we've been using in our country for 200 years. So around the Industrial Revolution is when we really started to first see the word homeless to describe someone in the United States. And it was really to describe someone's job status, not their housing status. So at the start of the Industrial Revolution, we went from an economy and a country and a society that was really rooted in local, skill-based trades. If you think about agricultural communities. And then with the Industrial Revolution, people moved to larger urban areas for low-skill work, right? And with that movement, we found a lot of people who were in search, particularly young men, who were in search of work. When they arrived in these cities, they got work And then once they had employment, they had income and then a job. So the word homeless, for the first 100 or so years in which we've used that word in our country, has really been tied to describing someone's job status, not their housing status. And the solution, therefore, was really about employment, workforce development, getting people to work. Once you have that job, you can then, your housing issue is solved, right? It wasn't until after the World Wars that we started to see a shift in our homeless population, being older, having maybe physical, mental disabilities that maybe prohibited them from being able to get jobs or to hold jobs for a long time. And then in the 1980s, we saw a very, very dramatic shift in our housing market and our investment in community through things like HUD, which is the #1 provider of homeless funding in our country, as well as other welfare programs. And then we also saw a shift in the way that we house people, particularly people with physical and mental disability. We essentially deinstitutionalized those systems, all at the same time in the 1980s. So it wasn't until the past 40 or 50 years that homelessness has really begun to describe someone's housing status. So that's in the history of the use of that word and of our country and as a society. It's only in the recent history that housing is really the solution to homelessness. But we haven't really caught up with that idea. We're like 50 years behind, 200 years behind in some of our mindsets. How many times have you heard someone say, well, they just go out and get a job. Just go out and get a job. I know I've said that. I know I've thought that. That's a mindset that's 50, 200 years old at this point. And if we continue to think like that, we're never going to see a different outcome, because that is not the reality that we're currently living in. Because homelessness at this point in time describes a housing status, not an employment status, like it did for much of our history. So there is no solution to homelessness that does not include housing. Housing is foundational to anyone's well-being, whether it's your health, your education, your employability, any outcome in our community. Housing is foundational to that. On any given night, we estimate that we have at least 3,000 people experiencing homelessness in Spartanburg County. Half of those 3,000 people are children. We know that 50% of our population in Spartanburg County is at risk of homelessness. They are working, but they do not make enough to make ends meet. 50% of our community is working, but doesn't make enough to afford their basic needs, including housing. They're one unexpected medical situation, one unexpected car repair away from not being able to pay their rent, which could spiral them into eviction and homelessness. The homelessness that you see, our street homeless, is people who are falling through the cracks of our current systems, services, and programs. Individuals that we recognize as homeless oftentimes face a lot of barriers and challenges to access current resources and services that may exist for someone else, whether that's related to their substance use, mental health, maybe their criminal background. These are people who are falling through the cracks. So the people that you recognize as homeless on the street are what we call our chronic homeless. The average amount of time that someone experiences chronic homelessness in Spartanburg is 10 years. It's the average amount of time that someone experiences chronic homelessness in Spartanburg. So that tells us that our current services and system and approach to homelessness takes 10 years at least, or on average, I guess I should say. 10 years. That's unacceptable to me, right? It shouldn't take 10 years for someone to have something as foundational and basic as housing. And when I hear that it takes 10 years, or that there's an average of 10 years of chronic homelessness in our community, it tells me that I live in a community where there is still a place in the world for you, but it is on the street, right? And somehow we've resigned ourselves to that as a community in some ways. So A Place to Call Home, we have a vision, a two-part vision. First part of the vision is that homelessness is solvable. Like I said before, there's no solution right now to homelessness that does not include housing. We have been building housing the same way for the past 100 years in this country. If you look at the process and the way in which we go about building homes 100 years ago and how we build homes today, it is basically identical. We know how to do that. The second part of our vision is we envision a community where everyone has a safe, secure place to call home. This is not rocket science. When we ask people who are coming into our housing programs at A Place to Call Home for their intake, one of the questions we ask them is, what makes a house a home? You want to know what the number one response we get? Interviewing hundreds of people for housing programs, the number one answer we get is, I'll have my own fridge. I love this response because it reminds me how simple and ordinary and basic home is for all of us. We all want to just be able to open up our fridge and have food there that we can prepare for ourselves and our friends and our family. That is so simple. Why have we made it so complicated? How do we uncomplicate it, right? I think a lot about the phrase, what got us here won't get us there. Another way of saying this is change requires change. My favorite way to say this is a surrealist saying that says, there is another world, but it is in this one. A Place to Call Home and our vision that homelessness is a solvable problem and everyone has a safe, secure place to call home is not rooted in a make-believe, idealistic, naive world. It's rooted in a believed-in world. I believe in this world, this vision for our community, and I actually have the privilege of seeing it every single day. I want to share some foundations of our philosophy with A Place to Call Home. One is that in everything that we do, we believe that housing is a basic human right. Second is that collaboration is critical. We cannot solve this problem alone. The third is that we have a full continuum of support: prevent, serve, and house. Prevent homelessness from happening in the first place, serve those who are experiencing homelessness so that it's brief, rare, and non-recurring, and then make sure that we have housing for everyone. So if we think about this in action, thinking about what are the most immediate needs of people who are currently experiencing these challenges, as well as the long-term solutions. So that might be the immediate fix for prevention, might be providing financial assistance to pay their rent, to keep people housed. A long-term solution might look like, what would it be to have a tenant right to counsel here in this community to prevent people from being evicted? For those who are seeking service and currently experiencing homelessness, we have our homeless engagement and response team that works with people to navigate existing resources and services to get them off the street. But what would it look like to change tenant screening processes so housing is actually more accessible for people? And then thinking about housing, we have transitional housing with Bridgeway Village. But what would it look like to change policy in our community so that there aren't so many barriers to housing long term? And this is real. We want to share the story of one man that we've worked with. We're going to call him Mark for the purposes of today. He has been homeless in Spartanburg for over 20 years. And when we say homeless, we mean he has been living on the street, not in shelter. For 20 years, he's been homeless. There have been many attempts to house him in that 20 years. And, you know, after 20 years of trying to help someone and not seeing a different result, I will admit there's been sort of a collective resignation regarding this man named, that we're going to call Mark, that says there is still a place in the world for you, and it is on the sidewalk. And there's a version of Mark's story where he's still on the sidewalk. But I'm very excited to share that that is not Mark's story, and I'm going to invite Stephen up to share what Mark's story is.
Good morning, everybody. Sunday morning. So excited to be here. Much like Hannah, I haven't been to church in a very long time, but I think that this is a great congregation to speak to and a great church or facility to be in for my first time back in a while in a sanctuary. So like Hannah had alluded to, today I'm going to be talking about a gentleman that I've been working with for close to, I want to say like half a year. His name is Mark, again, changing the name for privacy reasons. He has been homeless, or had been homeless on the street for nearly 20 years. This was a gentleman who, he's from Spartanburg. He's lived most of his life in Spartanburg. Went to Spartan High, can tell you everything about Spartanburg in the 70s, 80s, where he grew up. Grew up in the north side with his mom, and was a gentleman who had a lot of barriers. These barriers existed in the form of mental health challenges, lack of resources available to him, physical health challenges that he's still dealing with, on top of just never really being in his own housing before. Again, 20 years without having his own place, having no employment, having no income. So all of these complex barriers came together to keep this person in homelessness, again, for over 2 decades. Again, many agencies had tried. Over the period of time I've worked with him, I've connected with many agencies and individuals who said, we tried with Mark, we tried to help him, but we just weren't able to get the resources that he needed. And again, our team even tried. Over a year ago, we tried to connect, tried to get him the resources, and we still faced those barriers. However, in fall of last year, we decided to start a pilot program where we focused very intensely on 5 individuals who had a number of complex issues in the city. And we decided, we're going to refer him to this program, and we're going to start pouring into him, meeting with him weekly, meeting him where he's at, literally on the side of the road, downtown, picking him up to go to appointments, and getting him started and meeting him where he's at, and being creative in our solutions for him. And during that time, we found that he was willing to engage when he felt someone was there to support him, hold his hand, for lack of a better term. He began to gain confidence. He began to understand that we're here to help him. And we were able to make some strides, get him to mental health appointments, get him to doctor's appointments. But still, I remember discussing with Hannah, we said, we were able to get all of this for him, but still, housing is going to be a challenge. Getting him to that next step is going to be very difficult. So in talking with Hannah, the decision we kind of came to was, he would be a good candidate for housing. It's just that we don't have the housing available. So again, we had to be unique in our solutions and move around some grant funding, and we were able to place him into permanent housing in November. And I will say he's been there ever since. And yes. And, it's not been without its challenges, certainly. Even before we placed him into housing, I would often ask him questions about, kind of what do you want, what are you kind of looking for? And even today, he kind of gives these sort of half answers. He's like, oh, well, And I'm like, I don't think I know, Mark. You need to tell me. But we ended up doing an exercise where I asked him, Mark, if you had your choice, if you had unlimited money, what would your ideal housing situation be? And from that, I was able to get so much great information, because he was explaining, you know, what he'd like. He would like to live in an apartment. He would like to live in the north side because he had so many memories, positive memories of being with his mom there. And we were able to find housing in the north side for him in an apartment, and kind of checking those boxes for him, which we believe made a big difference in, you know, his safety and or how secure he feels in that housing. We check in with him nearly every single week. We take him to go get groceries. We take him again to doctor's appointments. You know, I sit with him and discuss with him how he's feeling, try and involve him with the process. But again, as I alluded to before, it's not been without its challenges. He's been in the housing mostly, but even just this last week, he left the housing and tried to give me back his keys. Because he got very upset with a recent doctor's appointment that we went to. He got some news and some tests that they were doing that he wasn't happy with, and he returned to what he knows. He went back out on the street, back to where he feels secure, because that's what he knows. Again, he tried to give me back his keys, but I gave them back to him, and I said, you know, this is your home. This is your apartment. You can return to it at any time, and I'm happy to say he did. He spent one night outside, and then he went back. But in that story, it's not just our team that provides support to him. We have had over 10 different agencies be involved in some way and to get him into this housing. And I want to list most of them that I could remember, just because the work that they've done is so important. We've worked with Access Health, Spartanburg Regional Mary Black Campus, St. Luke's Free Medical Clinic, Spartanburg Area Mental Health, Northside Development Group, the City Manager's Office with the City of Spartanburg, Spartanburg City Police Department, Sidewalk Hope, the Bridge at Green Street, and of course, different departments under A Place to Call Home. And that's not even to mention the countless individuals who have reached out wanting to help him with groceries and furniture, people who've known him for years, who learned that he was in housing and decided to, again, meet him where he's at and, you know, give him what he needs. So again, even in that situation this past week, it wasn't us who got him back into the housing. It was Access Health and another friend of his who convinced him to come back in. So we truly can't do this work without the partnership that we have in the community and the partners coalescing around individuals like Mark. We really believe that this continued support, meeting people where they're at, is what's truly important and truly impactful. It takes a lot of time, it's a lot of work, but each person really deserves it. One thing I always say about this work is that the good thing about this job is that everybody's an individual, but that's also the bad thing about this job. It makes it very challenging because you have to see people for who they are and see their unique challenges and who they are. And again, I say it's the bad thing, but it actually ends up being the good thing because it's really quite meaningful to not just treat somebody as a number or just somebody on your caseload, but truly an individual. And again, meeting them where they're at, making them feel supported, and making them feel that they're a part of their own story and an agent that is making it happen. So thank you so much.
So, you know, there is still a place for Mark in this world and in this community, and Stephen will never say it, but a lot of that is because Stephen has made sure that there's still a place in the world for Mark. So let's give Stephen a round of applause. And when we say home, we're saying a tangible place, a place that has a door and a key and a bed and a refrigerator for his own food. When Mark first moved into his apartment, he was very excited to fry his own chicken. Like, that was his big goal. For housing, that is what home is. And that is why when we say home, what we mean. Home looks different for every person, but the journey to get there is very, we know what to do. Like I said, our philosophy is rooted in collaboration. I hope you heard that. And when Stephen was sharing about Mark's story, the importance of collaboration. Housing is foundational. It is a basic human right in the work that we do. And two, it takes a full continuum of support. It's not just about a job. It's not just about a shelter. It is all going to the doctor's appointment and holding a 60-year-old man's hand while his blood is drawn. It's the full continuum of support and meeting people where they're at. But it's also about proximity and creativity. So I hope you heard the proximity. It's the willingness to sit down beside someone, to navigate a hard time with someone. There's nothing more human that we can do than to help someone go through a hard time. The other thing is the creativity. We had to get really, really, really creative to house Mark. The answer was not obvious. It was not easy, but we figured it out. We had to look at what we had very differently. We had to put the pieces of the puzzle on the table upside down and say, we're not going to be driven by whatever the predetermined picture is. We're going to see if there's a different way to put these puzzle pieces together to come up with a different picture. So it took a lot of creativity, a shift in mindset to get Mark in his home. I want to close by saying there's still a place in the world for you, and it is literally in this building. Because as been mentioned, y'all have housed 4 families in this building for the past 2 weeks. Y'all have made a home for people in this world who otherwise would not have one. And it might not seem, I hope it seems like you were doing a lot, because you were. This work is, running away home is no part of it is easy or convenient at all. If we think about the policy conversations I've had to be part of to even just allow for families to sleep and shelter in congregation, to you having to spend the night here as opposed to your own home, right? To create home for someone else, it's not easy or convenient, but there is people in this world where we firmly believe that people are worth the trouble. Our neighbors are worth the trouble. And we have to keep waking up and doing that, because there still is a place in the world for you, and it is here as long as we are all here. Thank you.
Clemson, I hope you'll forgive me for stepping on your toes for a minute. But I would also like to publicly thank our guests once more for everything they do for our neighbors and for calling us again into our purpose of seeking that world of mutual thriving where everyone has enough and no one has to be afraid. So let's applaud them once more. And now, if you'll join me in hymn number 318 in our great hymnal, We Would Be One.
Jennifer, you can take my place anytime. You did a great job. Thank you for that. And as we extinguish our chalice this morning, we extinguish it with words from an educator, a creator, a TV personality, an ordained minister, and a renowned jazz pianist, Minister Fred Rogers. And I quote Mr. Rogers, "We live in a world in which we need to share responsibility. It's easy to say, it's not my child, it's not my community, not my world, not my problem. And then there are those who see the need and respond. I consider those people my heroes." Mr. Fred Rogers.
All right, I'm always going to let Mary Oliver have the last word. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things.